Newly released documents reveal the inner workings of an intelligence group that was set up to surveil, monitor, and infiltrate protest groups at the 2010 Toronto G20 summit. Now, as these documents shed even more light on a long history of illegal conduct by Canadian police services, many Canadians are asking whether the country has in fact become a police state. This is the GRTV Backgrounder for globalresearch.ca. Documents released under the Access to Information Act in Canada earlier this month reveal what Canadian activists have long known: that a massive RCMP-led intelligence dragnet worked for 18 months to infiltrate, surveil, and ultimately arrest activists across the country for their participation in Vancouver Olympic and Toronto G20 activism. The operation involved the formation of a joint intelligence group that the RCMP itself said in an internal document was likely the largest such group ever assembled in Canada. And after 18 months of operation, this dragnet, part of the $1 billion that the Canadian taxpayer was forced to pay out for security operations around the G8 and G20 meetings in Toronto last year, resulted in the arrest of just 17 people, with 6 of the accused pleading guilty to charges of counseling mischief. 11 of the 17 have had their charges dropped altogether. The documents revealed the organizational structure and the inner workings of the intelligence task force, which employed over 500 federal, provincial, and municipal police and began working as far back as mid-2009, before the conference was even scheduled. An early threat assessment document identifies the types of people police believed would be involved in protesting the G20 summit, the annual meeting of political leaders from the world's top economies. The 2010 G8 summit in Huntsville, as with most venues of this type, will likely be subject to actions taken by criminal extremists motivated by a variety of radical ideologies, the report reads. These ideologies may include variants of anarchism, anarcho-syndicalism, nihilism, socialism, and/or communism. The important commonality is that these ideologies place these individuals and/or organizations at odds with the status quo and the current distribution of power in society. The report goes on to conclude that criminal activity is often embraced by such groups and that they pose serious public safety challenges. Other documents outline the different types of undercover agents, event monitors, and surveillance teams deployed by the group, the covert operations undertaken by these agents, and the organizational structure of the different groups involved. Officers involved in the trial of the 17 people who were the ultimate target of this vast intelligence operation testified that they had not only infiltrated these protest groups, but took part in and had even encouraged acts of vandalism amongst the groups they had infiltrated. These reports lend further credence to the idea that the iconic burning of the police car, the most infamous scene from the Toronto G20, was not an inexplicable failure of the $1 billion security operation, but in fact itself a carefully choreographed event that provided police forces with carte blanche to crack down on all protest the next day.
The police have actually started to back up on their perimeter here on Queen Street West. They're actually giving way to the protesters here on the street.
This is just a photo op!
We can do better than this!
It's just a photo op!
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's not to our advantage. You don't understand.
Just getting our money.
You don't understand. You don't understand. Have you been demonstrating for the last 10 years? Every time you do something peaceful, artistic, this is what gets documented. And everybody thinks demonstrators are nothing but violent dissenters.
The almost farcical nature of the case, and what it has revealed about the behind-the-scenes security preparations for the Toronto G20, belie the very real abuses of civil rights that took place in the name of that security, including numerous documented violations by police officials of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
On whose authority can I not enter this park, a public park, without being illegally searched?
So we're here to ensure everyone's safety. That includes us, the police officers, the city, citizens of this city. Okay? We want to ensure the safety. We just want to check your bag to ensure that there's nothing that's going to be used as a weapon ready to hurt anyone.
To check my bag, I have to be detained or arrested. Am I being detained in order to go into this park?
You're not coming in this park unless we check your bag.
So it's a legal search. It's an illegal search.
It's not.
How is it legal to search my bag in a public park?
It's a government building in here. You're going to have to trespass the property out. Okay?
the bubble touches me, I'm going to be arrested for assault. Do you understand me?
Bubbles.
Yes, that's right. It's a deliberate act on your behalf. I'm going to arrest you. Do you understand me?
You're not smart enough to listen when you're told to do something. Right? Yeah. You haven't opened up your bag. So take off. In Canada, that's something. Yeah. This ain't Canada right now.
Oh! This is in Canada right now?
No.
Wow.
No. That's right. You're in
G20.
Earlier this week, I had the chance to talk to Dan Dix, an independent journalist who documented many of these abuses in his film, Into the Fire, about what these recent documents reveal about the police state in Canada.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I interviewed so many people and heard about so many stories, so many different experiences that happened there. And every story that came in, I just couldn't believe it. I just kept being surprised with the things that actually took place. Some of the ones that stand out for a lot of people is an interview I did with a gentleman named John Prine, who he's an elderly gentleman, and he is the one who had his prosthetic leg ripped off by the Toronto police. They ordered him to hop to a squad car, and when he said, I can't physically do that, guys, they just dragged him across the pavement and threw him in the paddy wagon and took him away. They wouldn't give him his leg back because they said it could be used as a weapon. So those are the kinds of things that we saw going on there. There was another guy, this became a big story actually when some of the footage was released of his arrest, Sean Salvati, who was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. This is a guy who was just going to a Toronto Blue Jays baseball game. He came out of the game and he was on his way, and before he hopped into a cab, he casually said to a couple RCMP officers, "Good luck with Saturday." Apparently that was a wrong thing to say to them. They pulled over his cab, took him out, began questioning him, and when he said, "I want to speak to a lawyer," they took him down to 52 Division, strip searched him, beat him up, held him overnight. And this is a guy who had nothing to do with anything. He wasn't involved in any political organizations. He wasn't an activist, but he certainly is now. And as you said, I think that's one of the things that happened with G20 is it made Canadians aware that we do indeed have a problem here. I think it was for the first time that people really saw that kind of a tyrannical things going on in our cities. So people woke up to the fact that, you know what, we got some things to worry about up here too.
Indeed, the G20 violations were just the latest in an ongoing series of scandals that have long tarnished the reputation of the RCMP and of Canadian policing in general. In 1977, the Trudeau government assembled a Royal Commission of Inquiry to investigate numerous cases of illegal conduct committed by the RCMP in the 1970s. The commission, which released its final report in 1981, concluded that the RCMP had repeatedly and flagrantly violated the law in its pursuit of domestic intelligence missions, including breaking into, stealing documents from, and opening the mail of political parties, burning down a barn in Quebec, forging documents, and conducting illegal surveillance. As a result of the commission, the national security function was removed from the mandate of the RCMP and assigned to a new civilian spy agency, CSIS, which was formed in 1984 and immediately hit by scandal when it failed to prevent the bombing of Air India Flight 182, despite having a mole inside the group that committed the bombing. CSIS was later reprimanded for having destroyed its own wiretap evidence in the case. In 2007, undercover Quebec provincial police infiltrated the peaceful protests at the Montebello SPP summit. The masked undercover officers were spotted with rocks in their hand approaching the police line, but when called out by one of the protesters, were then arrested by the police and taken away. Within days, the government was forced to admit that the men had indeed been undercover police officers.
It was stunning video posted on the internet for all to see, and it came with a charge that police masqueraded as protesters at this week's Montebello summit to incite violence. Tonight, an equally stunning admission from Quebec's provincial police. Susan Bonner reports.
These 3 guys are cops, everybody!
Busted. 3 Quebec provincial police officers, identities masked, one carrying a huge rock.
Hey, put the rock down!
Nabbed for infiltrating a peaceful protest at Montebello. The tip-off came from a union leader who noticed riot police standing by despite the obvious weapon. He accused the men of being undercover cops trying to provoke a riot and end the protest. The men were removed but never charged. After 2 days of questions, the Sûreté du Québec issued a news release late today confirming, yes, the men are police officers, but denying they were agents provocateurs, claiming they were sent in to identify and stop trouble. They say the police refused to throw stones, committed no crime, and were there to maintain order and security.
As more revelations continue to emerge from the scandalous security operations at the Toronto G20, activists who have long warned of an encroaching Canadian police state only continue to be proven correct. And as political protest itself becomes more commonplace in the light of the persistent crisis of the current global financial order, political pundits of all stripes are bracing for more such abuses and violations of the basic rights of Canadians. For more on this story and other breaking news and current events, please go to globalresearch.ca. For more research and analysis by James Corbett, please go to corbettreport.com.